Welcome to the podcast, Chris Graham and Ray Petree. We're going to talk some AEW around the holidays. AEW taping its Christmas night show on Sunday in New York at the Hammerstein Ballroom after a weekend of shows there at that iconic venue. Um the Ring of Honor pay-per-view on Friday night, the Collision on Saturday, they were both live, and then the Sunday show tape for Wednesday. Ray, your first impressions just generally, I mean, even going back to Collision, I got to watch a little bit of the Ring of Honor pay-per-view as well. Your impressions of how AEW's shows went off this weekend in the Big Apple.
If you could call it a residency, three shows in 3 days, the crowds looked healthy, and I think that was one of the best collisions I've ever seen, certainly since that initial batch of shows came out. I was glued to that show like I would be an episode of Dynamite, and I think a lot of other people were too, given the ratings. I- and Dynamite looked great. I mean, it was taped on Sunday. Obviously, they gave the wrestlers off on Christmas Day, but the crowd looked awesome. And it really shows that this experiment with smaller arenas is working, smaller venues. The setting is intimate. It's a little louder. You can see the fans. It looks great.
Yeah, I'm there with you. It looks great. It feels great. I like that venue. Um, as a wrestling backdrop, you can overdo it. So, you wouldn't want to run that on a regular basis, maybe once a year, like, at the end of the year, whatever time of year you do it. But, just the visual of those, the stage is there. There's a few people on the floor, but then the layers, the levels, they go up and the fans are able the noise then can collect and push down. It's a Broadway theater basically.
Yeah.
And it's hosted ECW back in the day. It hosted Ring of Honor back in the day. Those WWE one night stand pay-per-views from back about 20 years ago now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. Um, and so yeah, it's a great venue itself, and then the usage of it I thought was pretty solid too. I agree with you. I hadn't even looked at the number for Collision until you just mentioned it. 635,000 as an average. That's better than they've been doing for Dynamite lately. And so we don't have any numbers for Dynamite this week because of the Christmas holiday. So the last few weeks we've been breaking down the not only the overall number but segment by segment. We won't be able to do that this week with our review, but let's get into the Dynamite show. That's what we normally do here. And of course, we're leading into World's End, which is tomorrow night, Saturday. We're taping on Friday here. Um, Opening with a match. We'll start there. We'll go kind of just down your column here, Ray. Yeah, we've talked about this. For the last few weeks, AEW had started with an open with sort of billboarding the show, getting away from opening, just going cold into a match. Maybe it was because it was taped. They felt they needed to do this, but yeah, they opened with a match this time.
I mean, I understand, opening with Will Ospreay's song Elevate is not a terrible decision. There are worse matches you could begin the show with, but like you said, we don't have the numbers, so we don't know exactly what the second, third, fourth quarter hour looked like. But I just find more often than not, it seems like it's hard to retain the audience when you start with the match. The problem with this show just was that there were six matches on this show, and there was not a lot of room to breathe. They had a lot to finish, specifically for the Continental Classic heading into World's End. Collision did a good job of wrapping up a lot of the loose ends outside of the Continental Classic, but this was Dynamite's purpose this week was just to show a lot of matches. And for a tape show, that's not a terrible thing because the people that were there live, they got a hell of a show, it looked like. But like I said, if you're going to begin the show with a cold match, having it be Will Ospreay at Elevate in the Hammerstein Ballroom, not a terrible decision.
If now let's skip ahead. Will Ospreay. He has had quite the week. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess quite the few days there as it was taped. With the Darby Allin match with Will Ospreay that you saw live in DC, then Ricochet, and then the next night, as it turns out, with Brody King. We're getting our money's worth with Will Ospreay putting on a classic series here just in the last few days.
it's and then he's gonna we're gonna talk about World's End here in a minute, but he's wrestling at World's End, potentially twice in the same night. Um, we're coming towards the end of the year, and as I reflect back, Will Ospreay's just had an insane year. The sheer number of great matches he's had. I don't know. You're the only handful of wrestlers have had a year as good as Will Ospreay's had. And this was just a tour de force from him in, Wednesday to Sunday's 5 days. He had three great matches. It's insane. That Brody King match was awesome. I mean, what a display of strength from him twice doing the Styles Clash and then the Stormbreaker on him. It was like, wow, this is a hell of an opening match.
Yeah, Birdie King is a stout man, so to do anything with him in the air is incredible. As you mentioned, we might have two more matches coming up from Ospreay, so maybe the continuation of an incredible week for him. The Hurt Syndicate, the segment with the group was them being banned from entering the building, except for Shelton Benjamin and his match. And agree with in the column you wrote. This seems silly and contrived, and I'll kind of throw that criticism out. In my words, I'll say all the way out to the whole stipulation for the Continental Classic. Okay, any other match of the year. There can be outside interfere. There can be people on at ringside. They can interfere, whatever. But for this, no, we're not going to have any of that. It almost brings to the attention that we allow the shenanigans every other match. So I don't know. you know, yeah, contrived is the only thing I think that I could throw as far as that goes.
When the Continental Classic began, they very clearly said in the subtext, it's not no one can interfere. No one should ever interfere in a match. That's kind of the goal of wrestling, right? It's that
Yeah.
no one's allowed ringside. Okay, fine. That makes sense. Now if the goal there is to tell the fans in a kind of hint hint wink wink way that we're not gonna have any outside interferences in these matches, that's ridiculous because one, it's happened, and two, you're telling the Hurt Syndicate they can't come into the arena because they keep interfering after the matches. I mean, you have one group of people killing people backstage. I'm sorry about that. You have one group of people killing people backstage, and then the other, you have groups attacking people. It's just somewhat absurd almost.
We have people being run over with vehicles and people trying to pour cleaning fluids down other people's gullets with a funnel. And then, yeah, no, but you guys are interfering after a match is over. No, we can't let you in the building. Yeah, it's too cute by half is a saying I've heard before. So no, yeah, I'm with you there. So we talked about Will Ospreay, his matches with Darby Allin, Ricochet. We got Ricochet and Darby Allin. Yeah, this is where the Continental Classic is at its best. Is when you see the guys on one side of a bracket. You get to say, "Man, we're going to get these matches. We got these matches. We got Ricochet and Ospreay and our Allin and Ospreay." I'll be honest, I hadn't really thought about. Oh yeah, that means we also get Ricochet and Darby Allin. This also solid match.
I it's amazing how many good matches were on this card. And I guess, goes to show once again the benefit of the Continental Classic. These guys have never stepped in the ring together before. A lot of these matches were firsts. Um, and just another solid match. Ricochet continuing to prove that he can wrestle as a heel in his own way, despite his unique babyface skill set. He's playing that role well. And facing Darby Allin is a good opponent to practice that against because he's the perennial babyface. Um, and I like, the decision was great. You're using the rules of the Continental Classic, the events that have recently happened. Neither man lost, neither man won. Obviously, Ricochet advances, but it's just because of the prior success he's had. And both men leave with equal standing in fans' eyes. Ricochet still looks like a contender in this tournament, and Darby Allin didn't lose. he only really didn't advance in the tournament because that first match was against Brody King and he had just been in a car accident,
Yeah.
so he still looks great and looks like maybe he could still vie for that championship. So I love this a lot.
Yeah, everybody came out looking great in this, and that's yeah, that the best part of a Continental Classic is some of the matches you get that you would not or otherwise get. Because the booking tends to be feuds and that kind of thing, and these are not feuds. These could settle or start some feuds down the road, but yeah, we got a lot of great matches, and this was definitely one. Now, here was a surprise. The next one was a surprise, and we talk here on the podcast a lot. We love surprises in wrestling. Commander and Claudio Castagnoli. I mean, on paper, this looked like a foregone conclusion type match, and we got a surprise result. So, uh, and I liked how also that it started with. I mean, they came right out. Darby Allin's leaving his match, having lost. He whispers something to Alex Abrahantes and to Commander. We're left to wonder what that may have been. Maybe it was word. Now we realize maybe it was words of encouragement to go out there and pull the upset. But nice David Goliath kind of upset here.
Last week I mentioned on the show how Commander probably won't pick up a win in this tournament and how he's just a glorified turnstile. And I didn't mention it last week because Rampage hadn't come out yet, but I got to see that great match between him and Brody King. And for a moment there, you almost thought maybe he was going to beat Brody King, and ultimately Brody King won that match. But yeah, this was clever. Darby Allin leaves his jacket under the ring because I didn't even pay attention. He didn't leave with his jacket, whereas usually he would put it back on. And yeah, Commander goes under there and gets the brass knuckles out and clocks Claudio. And yeah, a little underhanded, but it's not like Claudio hasn't cheated thus far in this tournament. This was awesome. And Commander, on Ring of Honor Final Battle had he won the television championship, had a great moment. That was I think AEW posted it on Twitter afterwards with Tony Khan, really touching moment. So what a week for him. And I hope he's able to, this is the thing with the G1 is that maybe you might not win a block, but if you win towards the end after losing a lot, you can carry that momentum forward. Hopefully, Commander can carry this momentum forward, whether that's in Ring of Honor or in AEW, and start winning some matches in 2025.
We got a post-match schmoz with the four guys in the main event. I assume it's the main event for the world title tomorrow night. Hangman Adam Page, Moxley, John Moxley, um, etc. All did their moves. They hit each other with the briefcase and, kind of went on from there. You reminding us that there's a world title match coming up. Another then match that is sort of one of, again, you get these matches because there's a tournament, not because there's a booking to lead you to something. And it's just an incredible match on paper. And just seeing these two guys in a ring is enough to make you say, this is awesome. Kazuchika Okada, Shelton Benjamin. Um, Boy, just the idea that they're in a match is enough to get you hyped. It's hard to live up to that, but they did a decent job considering the constraints of what they're working within.
Yeah, I mean, when the participants were announced at the beginning of the month, this was a kind of match that you write down on the calendar and say, I'm excited to see this. And like you said, these guys have not been in the ring together before. Shelton Benjamin has definitely, worked his fair share in AEW already, but he's still getting his bearings. These guys certainly wrestled different styles and they've wrestled in different companies now for a long time and have both been acclimated to a different way of wrestling than is accustomed to in AEW. So, but it started off slow, and once it got to where it needed to be, it was a satisfying match. And um, them shaking hand. I mean, even though he gave him the finger after he turned away, them shaking hands was cool. And um, you have to think this is probably a dream for Shelton Benjamin. His career's winding down. He's 49 years old. To get to share the ring with the Rainmaker, I'm sure was a big deal for him.
You weren't as much a fan of the Tony Storm Taya Valkyrie match. I can understand why. It's probably just as much in relation to how the other matches were on the show. Also, I was disappointed that what we're being sold with Toni Storm is obviously her new character. She has amnesia. We didn't really get a sense of that here because, there was really no mic work because they were trying to fit everything into all the matches into this tight 2 hour window. We had to remember, and they may have, I don't remember if they did this or not, if they gave us a package that showed us her interactions with them from the show the night before, I guess it was on the Rampage, if I remember that right. Or maybe it was on Dynamite the couple of days before. Point being, yeah, she's playing it well. She's forgotten her career pretty much. She thinks she's an indie wrestler, um, who's who's never been a world champion, et cetera, et cetera. I like that part of the story, but this match was sort of just a match, not as much building into that story. That was my feeling.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to fault either woman for this match not being great. It was the time constraints. It was just the unfortunate circumstance that they were in, that they were, so many matches had to be on the show. But I almost think it would have been better if it were a segment, if it were a promo of some kind, backstage or in the ring. Um, I wonder where the storyline's going with Tony Storm and Deonna Purrazzo. Is this building towards something? I mean, if Tony Storm does think she's a rookie and she's climbing that ladder, you'd assume it's going to be a while until she's facing Mariah May, maybe Grand Slam, if I'm putting my booking hat on. So that's, another month kind of building towards that. What's the short term here? Is it going to be a match between her and Purrazzo? Did you make the vendetta just to get beaten by a rookie Tony Storm? I don't know. But yeah, this was fun. I like Tony Storm's jacket and her ring attire. It looked cool. I like her new look. I wonder how long it's going to stick around, but um, feel bad for Ty Valkyrie. This is her first appearance on Dynamite in a long, long time, and it was in a short throwaway match where she got beaten by a small package. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Somebody who I was excited when she came in with based on her
yeah,
work previous. I mean, even in WWE, NXT, but then yeah, TNA, AAA, MLW. I mean, she's been a top lady everywhere, and she's not been booked that way, and she's kind of just yeah, she's just kind of there right now. Um, Kyle Fletcher, Daniel Garcia, two young guys who are going to be, obviously guys they built around for years. Garcia has just won a championship. Fletcher has been beating everybody. So
yeah.
somebody had to lose this match, unfortunately. But again, a Continental Classic match that puts stipulations to it. Um, what did you think about this one?
This is a really good match. I seem to have neglected to rate it, which uh it's a pretty silly mistake.
I just happened to
I would
notice that too. I should have asked you about that. Yeah.
I would give it 3.25. It was a really good match. And just continues to show the development of Kyle Fletcher as a heel wrestler, that he would be the one staging these kind of babyface comebacks in the past, and now he's the one snuffing them out. And Daniel Garcia has really become one of the best working baby faces in the company over the last month and a half. He's got this great connection with the kids in the audience. Obviously, he was in New York, so that's been playing in his favor. But I really like this match a lot. Um, they had a great promo building up to this match that aired on, maybe it was a backstage exclusive, like a digital exclusive thing, but I don't want to quote it because it's a little crazy. But Garcia is just uh, this guy just says whatever he wants to backstage, I guess. But yeah, I like this a lot, and I thought it was fun. A good ending. You just got to keep pushing Fletcher. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna win this tournament. I don't know if he's gonna beat Ospreay in the semifinals, but this kid, the world is his oyster. He's so young and has so much talent. I don't blame them for putting him over Garcia, because Garcia can leave this tournament and he's still a champion. It doesn't hurt him at all.
If you hit refresh, I've updated it with your rating, 3.25. So we're back to business there.
There we go.
Here we go.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Last thing we'll get into here, the John Moxley backstage promo. So earlier we had the four doing their moves on each other, hitting each other with a briefcase. Um, Moxley as champion, he's been used now. It feels like this is the second time he's been used as a guy to bridge to something else. He did so for a little bit of time there in the summer of Punk, what was going to be the summer of Punk.
Right.
And now he's in that role again as we're transitioning from Brian Danielson to whoever's next. Um, the idea booking wise was to try to give him some legs here with the Death Riders thing and this whole spiel he's trying to throw out there about trying to make the top of the roster tougher and all this kind of stuff. But I think I'm with you from your review. I'm not sure it's working. Go expound on your thoughts on this the last few months of John Moxley.
I think you look at groups he's been a part of in the past, and I think the Shield come to mind, and really the early BCC come to mind, with William Regal involved in it particularly, and I think, I think of a guy like Roman Reigns in the Bloodline and how dominant his championship reign was, and how I think in modern wrestling that's kind of the blueprint right now for a heel in a faction. You want the group to seem like a living organism, like it has life to it, it breathes, it has its own story, it has its own beginning, middle, and end. And the Death Riders feel like more, they feel like jackals that Tony Khan controls more so than a faction with goals and aspirations and a mission. Like, if you're John Moxley, you can't just keep saying your goal is to toughen up the roster because that doesn't make you a heel. Like, and no one's really challenging his conceit on that. They just keep saying, "Well, what you're doing is wrong." And it just doesn't. It seems cartoonish almost. It's not. I don't understand his um, motivations in a way that is easily understood or that I can in any way sympathize with. With Roman Reigns, you had that history where the crowd hated him. And so now he doesn't want affection anymore. He wants to be acknowledged for what he's accomplished, not as the next big thing. Because John Moxley, like Roman Reigns, has accepted that he is the next big thing. He's here. He is the one true king. I don't really see, I don't understand his motivations. I think that we need something to sink our teeth into, and that gives us a protagonist that can be the foil, that can be the antithesis to what Moxley stands for. And maybe that's Darby Allin, but how many times is this guy going to get his ass beat before we feel like he's ready? Because at this point, I don't feel like he's ready. He didn't, it's not like he came out of the Continental Classic. He looks better exiting it than he did entering it, which seems kind of backwards, but it's not. Maybe Adam Copeland is the guy. Maybe Adam Copeland will be the person who can stand opposite of Moxley and make this make a little bit more sense. But right now, I just don't see anything that's like transparently clear.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I agree. No direction as to who the next logical guy is. It's I agree. It's not Darby Allin right now. Let's look ahead. I'm gonna put both of us on the spot as we look ahead to World's End. You know, feel free to expand or expound or be brief. I'm gonna go down. There's 8 matches that I see listed for the show, including the 3 matches associated with the Continental Classic, the two semifinals, and then the final. So we'll both have to we'll go with who we have winning in the semifinals leading into the final for that one, but then we'll call the others. Basically, everything's for either a title or something because the Diamond Ring match is sort of for a title as well in a sense. I mean, so starting with the Continental Classic semifinal, I'll say number one. I don't know that one of these 2 matches will come out of the curtain. Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher. Who do you think wins this one?
I think Ospreay wins the rematch.
Okay.
And this is really a trilogy, so I think he's going to claim this series this year and advance.
So Osprey Fletcher, I'm actually going to go Fletcher, not to be contrarian, not because it makes better radio slash podcast. Just I don't know. Yeah, I think in this case maybe the idea is to put him over. But yeah, now as I say it out loud, I'm beginning to think Ospreay. But I'll stick with Fletcher. All right, so Kazuchika Okada Ricochet.
Oh, I think Okada. I like Ricochet, I like his character, but I guess I'll just go out and outright say it. I think Okada's going to leave this tournament with the championship intact. They've been calling him the best tournament wrestler in wrestling history. I think he's going to make good on that claim. And I think this gives us a window of opportunity for Kenny Omega to return.
There you go. Okada, I like Okada too, and if you, what you would have is an Okada Ospreay match, which would be incredible. I would have Okada Fletcher, which obviously wouldn't be Okada Ospreay. So let's go with Okada Ospreay. Sounds like you're leaning in the direction of Okada. Obviously, I think so as well. Tony Khan wants to put his stamp on Okada being a great tournament wrestler, and we've been hearing that Kenny Omega is close to, if not already having been medically cleared, and this could get us in that direction. So we'll both have Okada winning the Continental Classic, and in Okada's case, he'll defend his championship, maintain it for the next year. I would think that maybe after those, let's go with MJF Adam Cole for the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Who you got here?
I think the Undisputed Kingdom or the Kingdom are going to betray Adam Cole, and I think MJF's going to win.
I think MJF wins as well, and I like your idea with the betrayal. I hadn't really given that thought, but I do think MJ this kind of prop is perfect for a heel. It doesn't make sense for a baby face to have this prop. So, but your twist there, well, I'm liking that. So let's go there with that. Mariah May Thunder Rosa for the Women's World Championship.
I think Mariah May is retaining her title. The Tijuana Street Fight stipulation will definitely make this interesting. AEW more often than not really nails these women's street fights because you just don't get to see them in WWE. It's a fairly unique thing to AEW, so I'm excited to see this. I don't think Mariah May is losing that title anytime soon, though. So
I'm with you there. I don't feel like there's been enough of a push for Thunder Rosa to make us think that she's going to get the championship at this stage. I could say it for the next couple of matches too. Konosuke Takeshita Powerhouse Hobbs for the International Championship. Takeshita defending.
I think Takeshita's in store for a long reign with this title just because he needs championship gold around his waist, and I don't think he's ready for the world title. And I don't think AEW is ready for him to have the world title. Um, but I think this is going to be a good match. And Takeshita always delivers. And it'll be interesting to see him against a big guy like Powerhouse Hobbs. Usually he's wrestling smaller guys.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see this.
I hope Hobbs at least comes out looking good
Yeah.
as well. But I think as well that Takeshita will retain. The next match, Mercedes Moné defending her TBS championship against Kris Statlander, is obviously just, hey, we need another match. So let's bring one back from last month's pay-per-view. Um, I'll go first. I don't see any reason why Kris Statlander wins this belt at this stage. It kind of feels like just again like we needed a match. Let's throw them back in there together.
Um, I see what you're saying there. I mean, Mercedes will only a week later be wrestling in Japan in the Tokyo Dome at Wrestle Dynasty, potentially to win another championship, the Rev Pro Women's Championship against Mina Shirakawa. She's putting her New Japan Strong title on the line. Um, I don't know. I think part of me thinks maybe they're going to take all the belts off of Mercedes so she can start getting ready for the world title. Um, I think I think we're going to be on the road here not too long from now where they're going to need a big event, a big women's match at that All In show in Texas. And I think Mercedes Moné is going to be the headliner there in the women's division for the world title. I think Kris Statlander wins this. I just don't think it would look good for her to lose twice for the secondary women's championship when she's clearly a women's championship caliber wrestler.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's a good arguments there on all sides as far as that goes. Last match, we've kind of already gone into a lot of detail here. Moxley, Orange Cassidy, Hangman Adam Page, Jay White. I'll start again. We don't know where things are going to go from here, but it doesn't feel like we're being booked into a world title change. So I'll, by default stay with Moxley, I guess.
Yeah, I don't that I mean very clearly I think these three men are going to lead to their own self-destruction. I think Moxley's going to, excuse me, pull this one out. I don't think we're done with Moxley as champion yet. I'd love to see Jay White win this or Hangman Page, but I just don't see that realistically happening. But I do expect it to be a good match. All four of these guys can really wrestle. Jay White and Moxley have had a handful of multi-man matches in New Japan before that have been good. Obviously, Hangman and Moxley have history. Cassidy and Moxley have history. So, um, there's a lot of equity there, and a lot of these guys, they all have a lot of experience in the ring together now. I honestly, I hope this isn't the main event. I hope the finals of the Continental Classic is the main event.
That's
Um,
interesting.
and I mean, I know that's probably not a popular opinion. A lot of people always want the world title to go last, but we've been building the Continental Classic for a month now. I think it should be the headline of this show.
We notable by omission is Christian Cage with his contract gives him a world title shot whenever he wants it. I don't think anything happens here. It wouldn't make any sense for it to, but we'll note that coming up on January 1st, next Wednesday's Dynamite, it's the show from Asheville, North Carolina, that'll be a fundraiser for Asheville hurricane flood victims. FTR will be headlining that in some way. I don't know exactly how quite yet. Also, it's expected that Adam Copeland, who's also an Asheville resident, those two, the FTR guys are Asheville natives, but yeah, Copeland, who lives in Asheville, expected to make his return. The word is he's either close to being cleared or probably already has been cleared medically to participate. It would ruin the moment if they brought him out here in some capacity at the end of the show, though I can feel like, okay, if the Moxley Cassidy Page White match would end the show for this World's End, the best way to end this would be with some sort of schmoz ending of Cage maybe coming out and teasing cashing in his contract. So I'll throw that out there. I can see your point though too, Ray, that yeah, the if you're going to do a Continental Classic for 6 weeks, you might as well have that main event a pay-per-view. That would be the proper way to do that. So we'll see how they decide to go with that as far as that goes. Seems like a pretty tight card there. I mean, if that's unless we get another throw in out of the blue here the next day or two, 8 matches. They'll be giving them plenty of time, and maybe this one doesn't go to midnight. So, um, maybe that'll be good for us as far as getting sleep on Saturday night. I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they throw a Garcia match in against Shelton Benjamin on Rampage. We'll have to see. I don't know what's going to happen there, but eight. I mean, there's nothing wrong with 8 matches
Right.
if they're especially because three of them are Continental Classic matches. Um, I don't know if they're going to continue using the 20-minute time limit rule or not. I don't know if they've said or if they said during the broadcast, but I wouldn't be surprised if Wardlow returns at some point in the evening, in that MJF and Adam Cole match, particularly. That would not surprise me. Um, you know, uh, a lot could happen. I wouldn't be surprised if Kenny Omega returns at some point in the evening. And, I expect Adam Copeland to return next week on Dynamite, when FTR faces the Death Riders and some variation of the Death Riders, some configuration. But, um, yeah, I'm interested to see how they continue this World Championship story because I think, the last pay-per-view, the ending was wild. It was just very unpredictable. So I wonder if they're going to follow suit in the same manner or not. But
Yeah, there's no Darby Allin, there's no Swerve Strickland, there's no really the Hurt Syndicate and across the board there, I guess, right? So. Maybe they'll make appearances in some way just to facilitate, to further their next stories, even if it's just either vignette or on camera, something real quick kind of thing to say. But there's room for that kind of thing on this show. And I like the fact that it's not as packed as a lot of shows. I hate to complain because, and I'm not complaining that when you have 11 or 12 matches on a show and it goes so long, it's almost like, as a fan, you're starting to say around 10:30 or so, all right, we got to start cutting these matches a little short here so we get them
Yeah.
all in. Um,
Yeah.
I, we won't have that problem this time. I think we can maybe look and see. All right, I would expect the Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher, and Kazuchika Okada Ricochet matches at the beginning, towards the beginning of the show. I would expect them to be 15 to 20-minute matches just because the winners then have to go longer. They have to go again in a match.
Yeah.
But let's go with yours, Okada Ospreay. Give them 30, give them 40, give them whatever, and
Yeah.
an 8-match show can do that. With 4 guys in the world title match, you need some time for high spots and run-ins and things like that. I'm like you. I expect MJF Adam Cole to have some pro wrestling booking to it. I don't know about the other 3 matches having a lot of ornamentation to it, but give them each 15 minutes or so plus ring entrances 20 ring entrances and departures. Yeah, this can be a not feeling like we've stuffed in stuff into a 4-hour show. It can be a nice leisurely 4-hour show. Maybe this is, and also you don't need to get everybody on the card. I mentioned all the people who aren't booked on this show. This is a way, give some guys breaks, give some gals breaks, and let them charge their energy. They have shows in Japan next week, so you got a big roster. Use your big roster. There's a lot to this that I can say I like.
Yeah. And, Mercedes Moné and Kris Statlander, they broke the record on the last show for the longest women's match in AEW history. I wouldn't be surprised if they go longer than 21 minutes this time and shatter it again and have another great match. Mercedes Moné's been on a roll recently, and Statlander's always an A+ performer. But yeah, exactly, you're exactly right. There's room here for this show to breathe, for the matches to have some levity in there, and for this to really be, you're not racing the clock, seeing what matches you can get in before 11 o'clock at the main event starts. Um, I'm excited to see. I hope other than the 0 hour, there aren't any more matches announced at all because this is a good card with a lot of potential for a lot of good matches on this show. So I'm excited. And this is a good year of pay-per-views. This is what a bit. There's no better way to cap off a year like this than to have a really solid pay-per-view uh, with this many great performers on it.
So we got to get through this one. We'll look for your review on the weekend, and then we have 2 more next week. In effect, 2 more with New Japan, and then with AEW performers on the New Japan show, and then a New Japan AEW show the next night in Japan. So between that and then Collision with that big fight for the Fallen in Asheville with all the emotion there. Man, we're gonna have to like pace ourselves to get through these next few days. It's a good thing to have a lot of wrestling,
It
but we
is.
got a lot of wrestling coming up.
It's cool to see some AEW representation in New Japan at the Tokyo Dome. It'll be really cool to see that joint show together with Ring of Honor and Stardom there as well, and CMLL. Um, yeah, it's just, it's been a great year for wrestling, and this year is really the end of an era with what's really been for the last 50 years, this kind of television era. We're beginning this simulcast. Raw going to Netflix. It's an exciting time to be a wrestling fan, and it's been a really great year. And I'm already looking forward to 2025.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, we cover AEW here primarily from the AEW perspective. We started this year wondering what will happen to AEW. Will they get a TV contract? Will it be enough to, be sustainable for the future? Emphatic yes on that. And not only that, but like you said, the streaming part of it. We don't know what might be added to this, going forward. 2 big shows, one in Australia, one in Dallas coming up in February and July. And it just gets better. And even on the WWE side, I'm not a WWE fan or consumer, but for WWE fans out there, same kind of thing. TV contracts, lots of money, Netflix starting on January 6th. Um, there's a lot of excitement there. The NXT division is really been beefed up in the last few months. So yeah, there's nothing wrong. And I mean, TNA is kind of benefited from this too. They've got quite a few of their own homegrown stars, plus folks who have departed from WWE and AEW to make their product better. As a wrestling fan in general, I like that wrestling is as healthy as it is right now because more wrestling's better, and it just more opportunities for wrestlers to ply their craft and get better is better for us as fans. So, man, yeah, wrestling is as good as it's been in a long time.
It's in a really healthy place. Not just in terms of the amount of places there are for wrestlers to ply their trade, but it's kind of cool again. It's cool to be a wrestling fan almost. It's getting more popular in a way that it hasn't been in a long time. And I think that's better for everyone.
It's definitely better for us. Gives us content. It gives us an excuse to
Yeah.
do what we love to do, which is watch wrestling and talk about wrestling. So, hey Ray, we will look forward to your review coming up this weekend, and then well, you got to keep your fingers ready because you're going to have a lot to write about the next few days. But as always, great talking to you today.
Thank you, Kris.